It's kind of funny to think nowadays, but when Steam, the biggest online distributor of PC games, was launched, it was considered to be too difficult to get a game onto the storefront. Once upon a time, it was ridiculous trying to get any indie titles onto the store, and Steam's greatest weakness was that it was too exclusive a retailer. Valve's answer was Steam Greenlight, a service wherein hopeful titles would post a trailer and a description, and players would vote to decide which games made it through to the storefront. And after a few years, what seemed like a good idea became a permanently ajar floodgate, far more well known for large quantities of shit than it was for its many legitimate successes. Players would greenlight games ironically, and the young and stupid demographic would upvote anything with internet memes. Trading votes for Steam keys became a major problem, as Steam groups like YOLO Army would give their followers free copies of major games in exchange for upvoting developers in business with them. The biggest way devs bullshat their way onto the store was through Steam trading cards. I'm not entirely clear on the specifics, but if you get a bunch of Steam trading cards, included free with certain games, you can refine them into Steam gems or booster packs that are worth actual money. You can buy a discounted game below $1 and then sell the included trading cards for more money than you paid for the game. Users would greenlight anything with trading cards looking for this free money, and developers got kickbacks every time a card was sold, prompting developers to give away thousands of their keys at once, either to actual players or to groups of bot accounts, making more money off the mass trading of cards than they would have peddling their crap games legitimately. Opportunists and fake game developers began to flood the store as it became public knowledge that any non-functional game could make money regardless of whether it actually sold or not. At one point, an entire underground Russian website, myped.ru, was discovered where hundreds of shady developers and asset flippers would congregate to get each other's games through Greenlight and farm trading cards for mass self-perpetuating profit, effectively turning Steam into a money laundering operation right under Valve's nose. Put simply, if you knew the right tricks or had the right connections, it was absolutely trivial to pass obvious crap through Steam Greenlight. The service had become a bad joke. So on June 13th, 2017, Valve shut down Steam Greenlight once and for all, replacing it with a new system called Steam Direct, a brand new method for approving games for release on the store, as well as a series of behind-the-scenes changes to correct Steam's systemic problems. So what is Steam Direct? Well, you fill out some paperwork confirming that you're a real company, you pay $100, and that's it. Your game is on the store without a single question asked if you check a few boxes and pay $100. Yeah, to the surprise of absolutely nobody except Valve themselves, literally letting any Yahoo with $100 post games onto your professional storefront has somehow made things exponentially worse on Steam. Upwards of 50 games, most of them crap, are now launching on the store daily, absolutely burying legitimate indie titles. Developers are now fleeing Steam in favor of the Xbone and the Switch, where good games can get the recognition and success that's growing nigh impossible on Steam. They're not fleeing to the PlayStation 4, almost like its integrity has taken a major hit this past year. To drive home the point of how abysmal Steam Direct is, I've sought out a few of the more glaring examples of Steam Direct's utter failure for your consideration. A brief appetizer before we get to the main course, the vast majority of games flooding the service now are asset flips. If you're new to the lingo, an asset flip is a publicly available pre-made game template someone has bought and sold claiming it's their own finished game, or a game built out of publicly available pre-made levels and character models with next to zero actual programming. In other words, a non-game any jackass can cobble together in a few hours and a Unity license. In the past, I've reviewed the Steam games Uncrowded and Pixel Survival Craft Game, two repostings of the pre-made template game Unit Z. Mellow Online, writer for TechRaptor and leader of the Steam group Sentinels of the Store, tweeted that Unit Z has been released at least 5 more times under Steam Direct, with me catching a 6th as I was writing this script. But asset flips come in all shapes and sizes. Here, for example, we have Integrity, a completely unmodified reposting of multiplayer survival game template from the Unity store. Template, as in barely programmed starting block to build your own damn game. Huge thanks to Mellow Online for pointing me to the exact asset pack. You play as some kind of robot that spawns in the middle of a small forest, holding its arms like it's carrying an invisible gun. At least I think it's a robot. It looks like an untextured prototype man-thing you're supposed to paste skin textures and clothes over when you make your own damn game. The level is just grass with the same tree pasted over and over and over again. Several of the trees are levitating off the ground, which I like to think the original creator added on purpose to expose all the people who stole his game. You just walk around this forest with nothing to do. No enemies, nothing to shoot, and nothing to interact with. You're supposed to survive for as long as possible, except that's impossible. There appears to be absolutely no way to refill the obligatory hunger and thirst meters. Very rarely you'll find an apple or a water bottle, but each replenishes maybe a quarter inch of their respective meters. All it's physically possible to do is wander around until you die of dehydration, then respawn and wander around some more. A small empty map with dick to do is what passes for a game now. There's also no ammo indicator, not that you need one. The gun doesn't point where you shoot. The main menu has a link to a website which doesn't exist, and standing in the middle of a fire doesn't hurt you. Oh, and Mellow Online informed me that Integrity is the most ironic name this sack of shit could have. The story description is directly copied and pasted from the IMDb page for the show The 100. The game has a DLC ghillie suit that was stolen from the game H1Z1, and said DLC suit costs $30, down from its launch price of $100. That is so dumb, greedy, and corrupt that I'm surprised EA didn't try it first in Battlefront 2. Steam Direct has also allowed BMC to ramp up their production now that Greenlight isn't vetoing their ideas. Since Steam Direct's launch, BMC has released the previously reviewed Cumulator 2 and There's a Genie in My Szechuan Sauce, as well as Zombie Tato's Ultimate Game of the Year Edition. It's the exact same game as Zombie Tato's, down to the 9/11 joke, only now it has achievements, the video clips resize with the game window, you can skip cutscenes, and there's a slideshow of the cast at the playground included as an extra. I'll give them props for the game working correctly, but I feel this should have been a patch or an update, not an entirely separate release. Oh, and there's a sequel to Minor Ultra Adventures now. Let that thought seep into your head. And now it's time for the main event, 3 of the more face-palmy examples I could find of Steam Direct's utter failure, and due to the logistics of needing to fill video while I talk about some faceless dolt, I'm going to show you the game first and then explain why it sucks second. Our first specimen, Achievement Hunter Cromulent. Yeah, just take in that title screen for a minute. You play as some guy who I'm given to understand is a Russian YouTuber running through a cheap, endlessly repeating forest background while some Russian voice chants gibberish at you. I have no idea what's going on. You have a gun, and if you just hold down the fire button, the one endlessly copy-pasted enemy will always die long before it can reach you. You run to the right across completely flat terrain for about 3 minutes, and the game ends. That's all there is to it. It just took me a while to figure out how you shoot since the in-game control list is wrong. Oh, look, the tops of the trees are cut off. They did not give a shit. There is a shitload of Achievement Hunter games whose entire selling point boasted on their store pages is the fact that each has 5,000 achievements that are awarded literally for just letting the game run. I unlocked 379 achievements just for playing the game for 5 minutes. Because apparently in the perpetual dick measuring competition that is the internet, people care enough about achievements that they'll buy multiple versions of some Newgrounds reject baby's first Flash game to pad out a stat that nobody else can see. Oh, and in addition to all of these Achievement Hunter games being cheap asset flips, Mellow Online also reported that most of them are developed by a single person using shell accounts to make it look like they come from different developers. And despite being caught red-handed breaking Steam's terms of service, Valve has done nothing! These embarrassments are still up for sale. Go nuts, if you're a petty shit person. Next, let's take a look at Fidget Spinner Simulator and its asswipe of a developer, BC Interactive, aka Ada Berdiev. Yes, Fidget Spinner Simulator. You cannot be surprised that this exists. There are 2 levels, Forest and Racetrack. The Forest map is a tiny-ass square patch of land that takes less than a minute to cross with absolutely nothing to interact with. It's like Integrity, only much, much smaller, you phase right through the trees, and the controls suck shit. Your character is standing on some kind of a board, and W moves you in the direction of the board instead of the direction you're facing. It's the exact same as in a dump in the dark. The board is just a convenient excuse to cover how the dev couldn't program walking. Speaking of failing at programming walking, when the game launched, your character always floated on a single constant horizontal plane. If the elevation of the ground changed, you either floated over the ground or through and into it. In the game's final build, you actually walk on the floor, and you fall over and get stuck if you walk over any slight incline. Pressing R stands you back upright, but eventually I got stuck in a corner where no matter what I did, I just fell endlessly and couldn't move. A racetrack level is a large, completely empty, wide-open track you just walk down while nothing happens. There's a point in the map where you just fall through the stage, as if the game was programmed to finish a race anyway. There are other racers, who are all clones of one another, but programming AI is hard, and all they do is slowly march towards your position, and more often than not just fall off the track. If you stand still and let the other racers touch you, then you'll be constantly knocked over and unable to move, pushed off the track, then they'll come diving off the track after you, and you'll be immobilized for the constant collisions until you quit the game. Only one more thing to try before I shut this waste of space off. Yep, you can walk right off the edge of the stage. Big shocker. I'm mainly familiar with Berdiev through the YouTuber Sid Alpha, who reports on underhanded scumbags on the Steam store with his video series Dirty Devs. Berdiev used, or at least was involved with, 6 different Steam accounts, mass deleted any comments criticizing his games, which would be most of them, was deeply involved with that myped.ru site, and even ran his own site to give away Steam keys to farm cards, gave out review codes and then revoked them if he was criticized in any way, and taunted and harassed anybody who criticized him off Steam where he couldn't just delete the comments, to the point of leaving comments for Sid Alpha which he described as taunting for months on end. He also seems to have never developed a game in his life, considering Sid Alpha and Mellow Online were able to match up almost every single one of his games to publicly available pre-made templates that other people made. Berdiev liked to brag that his games had been updated, so clearly they couldn't possibly be asset flips, hoping nobody would notice that his so-called games were updated the exact same days as the asset packs he stole were updated by their original creators. Fidget Spinner Simulator, with its sheer jaw-dropping incompetence even by asset flip standards, reeks to me of Berdiev laughing in his critics' faces at what he could get away with on Steam. He was implicitly bragging that he could launch completely broken crap while flaunting Steam's terms of service and going, "What you gonna do about it, brah?" Fidget Spinner Simulator had a $50 DLC package that did absolutely nothing except turn the Fidget Spinner gold and unlock an achievement. And judging by the user reviews, at least 2 bottomlessly stupid people not only bought the DLC, but reported that it didn't even work. Berdiev later posted a $12 DLC proclaiming that all proceeds from the DLC would go to an autism charity, which, yeah, you can do that on Steam with absolutely zero obligation to actually make a donation. To his credit, he did send Sid Alpha a receipt indicating that a donation took place, but there's no way of knowing how much of the proceeds went to the charity, and given the context, it felt like he just did it to publicly spite his biggest critic. Thus emboldened that he could get away with anything, Berdiev released Vaping Simulator, another heap of shit where you didn't do anything, only this time using Jim Sterling and PewDiePie's likenesses without permission. His next game was Pickled Rick, a blatantly unlicensed Rick and Morty game. Berdiev was laughing his ass off that he could upload anything and Valve wouldn't stop him. And he was right. Valve didn't care that Berdiev was obviously using copyrighted characters that didn't belong to him. But Cartoon Network sure as hell did. Cartoon Network issued a DMCA takedown of Pickled Rick, and only then did Valve finally drop the axe and kick Berdiev off Steam for being a legal liability. After months of abusing critics, uploading broken crap, and blatantly breaking Steam's terms of service left and right, Berdiev literally had to break the law for Valve to give him the boot. And it will always bring a smile to my face to think that the little shit effectively trolled himself out of business with his own arrogance and stupidity. But Berdiev's example of the sheer lengths you have to go to get kicked off Steam is nothing compared to our third ghost of Shitsmas past. The most notorious failure of Steam Direct, so far anyway, has to be Zonatron Productions, aka Silicon Echo, aka Zonatron Studio, aka Pigsbury Studios, aka Flip Productions, aka Sword Bubble Games, aka Silent Echo, aka Broadplay Games, aka Cubecumber Games, aka Go Cubelets Games, aka Crimson Duck Studios, Digital R&E, Digital Carrot Productions, and NetFox Games, and those are only the accounts Mellow Online told me about. From Greenlight's shutdown on June 13th to the end of September, call it roughly 105 days, Zonatron posted 173 games to Steam. More than one new game every single day over the course of 3 months. And to think we flipped shit when Digital Homicide uploaded a new game every 2 weeks. I have 8 Zonatron games in my library, so far as I know, so let's take a little sampling of Zonatron's games. I have a hunch that it will not take long. Brilliant Bob. You play as a small purple block that has to get to the end of each level. It's crippled by god-awful, stiff and awkward controls that make every slight action a huge chore. You can only rotate the camera in huge bursts with keys clustered around the movement buttons, so there's no easy way to move any direction other than straight ahead or 90 degrees. I got stuck in level 4, in fairness it looks like I got halfway through the game, because you have to make a jump off these stacked blocks that tumble if you so much as graze them. The game also keeps glitching to where you can't pick up items, rendering the game unplayable. Oh, and new rule going forward, quit using shift for primary actions. My computer keeps trying to turn on sticky keys and it's pissing me off. Rage Parking Simulator 2016. You drive a car into a parking spot and die if you graze any object. The only controls you have are a steering wheel you have to awkwardly operate with the mouse and a forward-reverse shifter that only sometimes responds to pushing the spacebar. There's also no brakes, so even if you drive correctly, you still lose if you don't perfectly gauge a distance. It's clearly one of those intentionally shit enragement games cranked out in the hopes that Markiplier or PewDiePie will play it and generate a ton of free sales, but compared to Surgeon Simulator, where you're brutally murdering people, or I Am Bread, where you very delicately cross a long level only to screw it up and start over, bumping an obstacle in a small room just isn't funny. Oh, and there are 466 achievements for crashing. Yay. Rage Parking Simulator 2017! Oh, for the love, it's the exact same game, just with less than half the levels. Same interface, same music, same controls, same stock art. If I spliced footage of these two games together, I guarantee you wouldn't be able to tell any difference. Slingster. You're a blob in a side-scroller trying to collect 5 gems and get to the end of each level. What's annoying is that in addition to moving using space to jump, your jumps don't go far unless you constantly hold down a third button, shift of course, to do high jumps. Why not just make the high jump the standard jump? You also have a gun, which does nothing because it only fires horizontally, and enemies are always coming from above or below you. The level design is obnoxious, with tiny platforms and insta-kill spikes everywhere you look off-screen. Enemies can kill you in a second, and you only get 5 lives before you have to start a level over. There's 24 levels, but it's so tedious to play, I don't care! Oh, and there are 428 achievements for firing the gun a lot. Yay. Slingster 2. It's the exact same game as Slingster 1, only with an ice theme. It's like they just pull levels out of their games to sell off as separate games. But that'd be ridiculous, wouldn't it? Dozen-plus Raccoon Hero games that all looked identical to one another. Now you have to shoot every single wall on the off chance one of them is fake, you have to wait for platforms with long-ass paths to make progress, and the second level establishes that these walls can be climbed with batshit controls, but then, oh look, I fell down and I can't get up because they forgot to make any of these walls climbable! It's also interesting to note Slingster 1 and 2 are listed under completely different developers, and Valve didn't notice. Oh, and there are 374 achievements for firing the gun a lot. Yay! They came from the moon. There's 5 little circle people walking around a map. You place jump pads to send them to the end portal. It would be stupid easy if the game weren't so inconsistent. If the aliens fall some arbitrary distance, they die, which you won't know until you've tried a solution and failed, and pretty early on they start forcing you to set your solution quickly or the level becomes unwinnable, so you have to constantly reset the puzzles in perpetual trial and error. That's bullshit! Why so evil? You're a green cube that has to roll into a blue cube without touching any other cubes. That's it. It's like the first Unity practice tutorial uploaded as a full game. Why So Evil 2 Dystopia! Now you're a cube trying to roll into a glowy circle on the ground, but you can't roll on a surface unless you've changed your color to match the floor, and I quit 3 levels in because you keep having to cross tiny corners with abysmal controls. Also, sometimes the main menu glitches and you can't select anything. This game is literally unplayable. In hindsight, I wish I'd selected a wider array of Zonatron games, but are you starting to get the picture here? Dirt simple games that appear largely pre-made and look passable on the surface, then turn out to be utter shit once you play them. Valve either completely failed to notice or just didn't care that a single developer was completely spamming games to Steam. Even once Sentinels of the Store rooted out and reported Zonatron in its assorted accounts, Valve still didn't take any action, at least not publicly. If my recollection is correct, it took several days of active campaigning from Steam users and some minor headlines from gaming sites before Valve finally purged Zonatron and all of its games from Steam. For many, including myself, it was too little too late. Valve's true attitude of "screw you, got mine" in regards to Steam had become abundantly clear. I know from Mellow Online's excellently written articles that Valve does proactively punish some offenses on Steam. If you get caught creating bot accounts or forging reviews for your own games, Valve will drop the ban hammer faster than you can say Puffles the Jigglypuff. But flood Steam with shit titles that barely work? That's cool. They get paid, and who gives a shit otherwise? It's become clear Valve wants to have its cake and eat it too. They want a respectable storefront of quality games, but they also want to keep making sweet moolah off every delusional bastard who submits Parking Simulator thinking he's got the next Undertale. And so they continue to do everything in their power to fix Steam that doesn't involve them making slightly less money than usual. Valve has publicly taken several steps towards fixing Steam, but they've all been half measures to avoid cutting at all into their profits. Valve changed the way trading cards work and limited how many keys a dev can create at once to keep asset flippers from giving their games away and making money off trading cards, which is their main source of income. It hasn't worked because you get the same results with easily made bot accounts that Valve takes forever to find and eliminate. Valve has incorporated algorithms to ignore fake games when players shop around. It hasn't worked because over 50 new games are being uploaded to Steam every day, the vast majority asset flips, and the algorithms can't keep up. Ask anybody who saw their ad revenue slashed by 75% by YouTube's adpocalypse how well algorithms work in the best of times anyway. Recently, Valve has rolled out new curator tools so higher class Steam users can easily find and recommend games. It hasn't worked because, as Mellow Online reports, curators just get flooded with requests for asset flips because these people are delusional about their products. Valve cut the maximum number of achievements a game can have from 10,000 to 5,000 to combat achievement spammers, and it didn't work because what freaking game needs 5,000 achievements? And that's not even counting the problem Steam has with banned developers sneaking back onto the store a new game called GameTube that has other game keys smuggled inside of it to distribute asset flips and trading cards under the radar, and a boatload of other things. It all comes down to the same recurring problem. Shit people can find pre-made games online and sell them to make easy money while abusing customers and doing no actual work. Steam has no means to stop these people from getting onto the store, and Valve has no effective means of kicking the parasites out once they've burrowed inside. The result now is a veritable avalanche of horrid games while actual good games struggle for any shred of success. Valve once seemed to be a respected platform once again, but that won't happen until they start turning away hacks who clearly shouldn't be on the store, and that won't happen because Valve has demonstrated it values profit more than integrity. Prove me wrong! Hire staff to root through the river of shit that Steam has become and start giving the boot to people who shouldn't be there because it's rapidly becoming clear that nothing else will fix the problem. Fact remains, Steam Direct is hot garbage and seems poised to remain so for the foreseeable future.